so inspired to see you all so pumped up and full of energy. Because this is your city. And we are working hard every day to keep this your city. Now, let's harness the energy in rooms like this and on streets all across the city so that we can keep on making progress. Can we count on you to do that? Good, because you know, we have universal pre-K, but we need 3K. High school graduations are going up, but we want them to keep on going up. People have easier access to mental health care services, but we want to make sure that that keeps getting better too. We want to keep on making progress, and that starts with all of you. With your help, no one can stop us from fulfilling our dream of creating a better, fairer New York City for all. So can we count on you? Can we count on you? All right. Well, thank you all for coming out tonight, and I would like to introduce the love of my life and our Mayor, Bill de Blasio.
4 more years of Shirlane McCrae, right? My dear friends, we are gathered here for something so good. We have done so much together. And I want to thank everyone in this room tonight, because this journey together, on behalf of all the people of this city, we have come a long way, but it's making a difference in the lives of 8.5 million New Yorkers. And I want to start with a little tale of audacity that involves our First Lady. Because she came in to City Hall and she said, we've got a challenge in this city. It's something that has not been addressed for generations. It's a pain and a burden on every family. It's the challenge of mental health. And there's a stigma holding us back. And she had the audacity to say, in this city, we will break down that stigma once and for all. And she brought us Thrive NYC. And as a salute to her, I'm going to tell you her favorite phone number in the whole world, where everyone who needs mental health can get it for free, 1-888-NYC-WELL. I'm going to ask you to salute her by repeating it with me, 1-888-NYC-WELL. Thank you, Shirlane. That's like our favorite anniversary present on our anniversary. You get a big crowd to repeat that number. So, brothers and sisters, we're gathered together, and that is powerful unto itself. But we're also gathered in the presence of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders defines the idea of audacity. And what he has helped us to understand in just the last few years is that we have power we didn't even know we had. He had the audacity to suggest that working people ought to actually be in the control of this country. Bernie Sanders taught us to throw away the rule book we once knew and to do politics a different way and to reach people at the grassroots and make change like never before. Now, what I'm seeing more and more is the only way you make change is with audacity. The only way you make change is by throwing out that rule book. And 4 years ago, we had an election. And the pundits said it couldn't be done to begin with. They said we'd never get there. And then they said once we got to City Hall, there'd be chaos and New York City would return to the bad old days. Remember those advertisements with the grainy images of the 1970s? Elect a progressive and you're going right back to the 1970s. That was the message. Well, we knew better. We knew that this city had to be fairer. We knew this city wasn't going to work unless it was a city for everyone. We knew if the inequality kept growing, it would just hold us back. 4 years later, and everyone in this room deserves credit. 4 years later, we have pre-K for all. 4 years later, we had 2 rent freezes for the first time in New York City history. 4 years later, anyone threatened with eviction gets a lawyer for free to help them stay in their apartment. 4 years later, almost 300,000 New Yorkers have been lifted out of poverty. 4 years later, and stop and frisk has been reduced 93%. Guess what, brothers and sisters? We didn't go back to the 1970s. In fact, we are the safest big city in America. So we've come a long way together. But Bernie taught us that in too many ways the system is still rigged. The deck is still stacked against hard-working everyday people. And that means we have more to do. That means we have to get fairer. That means we have to become a more just city. When we this year said we have a simple message for all New Yorkers, it was only 4 simple words, but it said so much about what we have to achieve. We said, this is your city. It does not belong to landlords. It doesn't belong to real estate developers. It doesn't belong to the titans of Wall Street. And Lord knows it does not belong to Donald Trump. It's your city. It's always been your city. Even though you were told it wasn't, it's always been your city. You built it. You made it strong. You were here in the tough times. And you kept fighting for the city and the neighborhood you love. It's your city, it should work for you. And that's why we have more to do. You know, pre-K was something I cared so deeply about. Charlene and I saw what happened with our children, Kiara and Dante. We wanted every child to have that opportunity, and we've achieved that. But brothers and sisters, we don't stop. We don't stop when something's been achieved. We go farther. Let's go to 3K. Every 3-year-old deserves a quality early childhood education for free in the city of New York. We had an affordable housing plan to create 200,000 apartments to preserve the affordable housing people had, to subsidize it so they could stay in it for decades to come. It was for 200,000 apartments, 500,000 people. We said that's not enough. We're going to save 300,000 apartments for New Yorkers. We're going to reach 750,000 people. We're going to create jobs for people who live in the 5 boroughs. High quality jobs for people who live in neighborhoods that haven't had the jobs they deserve. 100,000 more jobs for New Yorkers so they can afford the city. We're going to fix our subways. Even though we like to remind everyone the state of New York runs them, we're going to help the state to see a better way. To fix our subways, how about a millionaire's tax for the MTA? I get a funny feeling that the millionaires and billionaires could afford to pay a little bit more. I don't know, I just get that feeling. And they pay a little more and the rest of us can actually get to work, or school, or the job interview. And here's one more piece we're going to include in that plan. Half-price Metro cards for low-income New Yorkers. That will make us a fairer city, right? And you know what else will make us fairer? Not only are we going to get safer, we're going to get fairer. We've come a long way helping police and community come together, but we need to build more trust. And you know what will help us do it? The ultimate measure of trust and transparency and accountability. In the next 2 years, every New York City police officer will be wearing a body camera. This is what a fairer city looks like. And I'll tell you one more thing about New York City. We will stand up to Donald Trump every single day. So long as he's in the White House, this city cannot be as fair as it needs to be unless we take him on, we challenge him at every turn, we say no. We say no to his immigration executive order. We say no to the Muslim ban. We say no to his efforts to give tax cuts to the wealthy and corporations. We're not going to let him do it. We're not going to let him take away the Affordable Care Act. We're going to stand up. And this city knows we don't take anything lying down in New York City, do we? We rise to the challenge, don't we? So my friends, we have work to do, but we've proven we can do it. Everyone in this room, we have proven we can make these changes in our city. So why not go even farther, right? We've proven it. So we can make this city better, we can make this city fairer, but now we've got something we've got to do. And it's a week and 1 day from tonight. You ready? Now, Bernie Sanders on his campaign said so many powerful things and so many memorable things and so many things that helped us understand what we should have understood long ago. But one thing he would say each night, and it moved me, is that the candidate matters, but the movement matters even more. If we're going to make change in this city, if we're going to continue this progress, if we're going to get fair, and we're going to send a message to Washington right now, then we need people to vote on Tuesday, November 7th. Which means, I'll do my homage to Bernie here, we need a huge turnout. Huge. Now, sometimes you will encounter people say to you, oh, I'm not going to bother to vote. It's all in the bag. There's no reason to vote. Here's my simple message I want you to deliver to everyone you meet who says that to you. You tell them the best reason to vote on Tuesday, November 7th is because of what happened last November 8th. Last November 8th, people stayed home and woke up the next morning to a rude surprise, and I mean rude. I mean rude. He's really rude. So, brothers and sisters, a message has to be to people. This is your city. It's your city. You decide the future. You have to vote to decide that future. That's what you have to tell people. And I now want to conclude with a vision, a bigger vision of the future. And there's going to be a day, I don't have a doubt in my mind, I really don't, the bigger change is coming. Because what we saw in the last few years, the truth that was told, the door that was open, the minds that were open, the people who became engaged, the folks who got for the first time an understanding that they could be agents of change, that is all going to add up, and that's going to take us somewhere very different. All over this country. So years from now, there's going to be a day when health care is actually a right for all Americans. There's going to be a day when college everywhere is actually debt-free. There's going to be a day when the 1% finally pay their fair share in taxes. And that day's going to come, and when it comes, you're going to look back and say, who started all this? Who started this ball rolling? Who started this movement? Who planted the seed? Who gave us the hope? Who showed us the way? Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming out tonight. As some of you know, I was born in a foreign country called Brooklyn. And when the mayor talks about trying to control rent increases, I know about that because my family lived in a 3.5-room rent-controlled apartment. So Mayor, thank you for doing everything that you can to make sure in these difficult times that this city remains affordable for working people. That's not easy. As soon as we are finished with this event, I'm going to get on a Amtrak and head back to Washington. And I want to tell you that what this election here in New York is about is the understanding that everything that Mayor de Blasio is trying to do is exactly the opposite of what Donald Trump is trying to do. And you should all be very proud of that. Trump, in an extremely un-American, ugly, and almost unprecedented way, is trying to divide us up based on the color of our skin, or our religion, or the country we came from, or our sexual orientation. And this mayor is leading this city in a way to bring us together to create a better life for all of us. Now listen to this, and why what Bill said is so important. Right now, the great fear that I have for this great nation is that we are moving rapidly toward an oligarchic form of society. You know what that means, oligarchy? That means a nation not controlled by ordinary people who will have differences of opinion. You'll argue it out. One person, one vote, democracy. But this country increasingly is moving toward an oligarchy where a handful of billionaires control not only the economy, but our political life as well. And what we believe is the antidote to billionaire control over our political process is when working people and young people and seniors and people of all colors and religions come together and demand a government and demand a government and work for a government that represents all of us, not just the 1%. For 40 years, the middle class of this country, whether it's New York City or my state of Vermont or any place in America, for 40 years, the middle class has been shrinking. We all know people who are working not one job, but 2 jobs, 3 jobs. People can't afford child care, can't afford their rent, can't afford to send their kids to college. Well, what we are saying now is our economy is going to work for all of us. The 1% has enough. Now it is our time to create lives for our children and our parents. And right now, on behalf of the Koch brothers and the billionaire class, Donald Trump and the Republican leadership have a budget that will give $1.9 trillion to the top 1% in tax breaks. I know that people who hear this will say he's exaggerating, he's not telling the truth. They have a provision, listen to this, to repeal the estate tax, which would give up to a $50 billion tax breaks to the Walton family, the wealthiest family in America. They want to make massive cuts, $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid, $400 billion to Medicare, massive cuts to nutrition programs. All of you know, Mayor knows, program called the WIC program. You don't know what that program is? Women, infant, and children. This is a program in a nation which has a very high infant mortality rate. It's a program that says to low-income pregnant women, we're going to give you the food, we're going to give you the nutrition for you and your baby. They want to cut that program to give tax breaks to billionaires. But Bill has a very different idea. He understands that all across this country and in the city, the infrastructure has serious problems, that every day people have to get on the subway to get to work, to go visiting, to get a job. And he has the radical idea that maybe the trains should be comfortable, they should run on time. What a radical idea. And maybe you should have a bus system that's reliable as well. And maybe, if you're low-income working people, you should be able to get a significant reduction in your fare. Well, that makes sense to me. And his idea to pay for it at a time of massive income and wealth inequality is to tell the 1% they're going to have to pay a little bit more in taxes. I want to congratulate the mayor and the first lady of this city for dealing with an issue that gets very, very little attention, and that is the crisis of early childhood education. You know, there was a time, 50, 60 years ago, Dad went to work, Mom stayed home with the kids. Those days are long, long gone. Mom is out working. And Mom, single mom or mom and dad want to know that when they're out working that their kid has quality child care, that their child has the intellectual and emotional support, so that when that boy or girl goes to school, they're off to a great start. It is an absolute disgrace in this country, let me say it boldly, how we treat our children. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. And all over this country, working people, Burlington, Vermont, searching for decent quality child care. Costs $15,000 a year more. Somebody works for me in Washington, D.C. I said, Katie, how much did it cost child care for your baby? You know what it costs in Washington? $30,000 a year. Now, how the hell can you afford $15,000 or $30,000 when you're making $25,000 or $30,000? You can't do it. So Bill de Blasio said that in the year 2017, we have to understand that early childhood education should be part of public education in general. And he is absolutely right. And I hope very much that we can lower that age here to 3. I hope very much that as a nation, the day is going to come that every working family in this country will know that their little ones will be able to get a high-quality early childhood education without any cost. And just as an aside, I want to mention that just on Saturday, seems like about 3 years ago, but just Saturday, I was in Puerto Rico. And you all know that the people in Puerto Rico today are suffering terribly. As of today, just spoke to the head of FEMA, 70% of the people still do not have electricity. Temperature is 80, 90 degrees. You don't have electricity, you don't have a refrigerator, you can't cook your food, you can't keep your medicine cool. It is just that people don't have drinking water, schools are not open. It is a horrible, horrible situation. And when I was there with the mayor of San Juan, what she said is she expressed deep gratitude to the mayor for sending his emergency management team. We're doing a great job. On Saturday, I was in Puerto Rico. On Sunday, I was in Toronto, Canada. And the reason I went to Toronto was in fact to learn something about the Canadian healthcare system. Now the media never talks about it. You don't see any TV shows on it. But I want you all to understand that the country right north of us, I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border in Burlington. Do you know how much it costs to go to a doctor? Who knows? $0. And if you have cancer and you need serious therapy and hospitalization, do you know how much it costs? And when you have a baby, do you know how much it costs? That's right. They have a healthcare system in Canada. I was there. And the quality of the system is as good or better than our system. They spend 50% per capita of what we spend and guarantee quality health care to every man, woman, and child. And Bill knows, and he's right, we're not going to bring it about tomorrow, but the day is going to come when we're going to take on the insurance industry, we're going to take on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry. And we are going to guarantee health care to all of our people as a right and not a privilege. I am proud, and you should be proud, that under Mayor de Blasio's leadership, New York City guaranteed paid sick days for 500,000 more workers, raised wages for tens of thousands more, and hundreds of thousands of families moved out of poverty. No small thing. And because of the mayor's leadership, 1 million people signed up for ID NYC, the largest and most successful municipal ID program in the country, because New York, under the mayor, will always protect immigrant families. Brothers and sisters, the mayor made this point. This election is not only re-electing the mayor, and that is exactly what you have to do with a big vote and with a big turnout. But this election is more than that. And this is something he can't do, First Lady can't do. It's something that you have got to do. And that is, we have got to revitalize American democracy. We have got to take on the billionaire class and tell them that they're not going to control the future of this country, but we will. And he can't do it all. We need people all over the city, all over this country, to stand up for a new vision of what America can and must be. Brothers and sisters, we are not a poor country. We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. I was up in Canada. When you have a baby in Canada, anyone know what happens? How much time you get off? You get a year off to stay home with your baby. They're in the process of making their public universities tuition-free. We can do all of those things. We as a nation can lead the world in transforming our energy system and creating millions of jobs, moving to solar, to wind, to energy efficiency. We can have the best education system in the world from pre-K through graduate school. We can create a criminal justice system which is just and end the embarrassment of having more people in jail than any other country on earth. The only limit to what we can do is our imagination, is our belief in what we can do. What the TV tells you and what the establishment tells you, you can't do anything. Who are you? Maybe you'll vote, maybe you won't vote. You don't have any power. You're nothing. And our job is to tell the billionaire class, we are something. And we are going to create cities and towns and a nation that works for our children, that works for the elderly, that works for working people. We can do it if we have the guts to become involved in the political process, if we have the guts to take on the billionaire class and fight for our children and our parents. So brothers and sisters, on election day, let's show the country that by a large vote, if you like a huge vote, let's re-elect Bill de Blasio. And let's show the world what this great city can do. Thank you all very much.